Tears for Crocodile. Once, a huge crocodile came to our tank during the monsoon. He loved the tank as it had plenty of fish for him to eat. I often saw him basking in the sun with his mouth wide open. I did not like him in our tank as he ate away all the fish. While he was basking, I threw stones and bricks to drive him away, but he would always slip into the water without getting hit. I thought I must find other ways to deal with the crocodile. I thought I could use a noose to catch the crocodile. I observed the crocodile stayed in one tank during the day. At night, he went from one tank to another to catch the fish. I followed the track and discovered a hole in a hedge. Then I planned to make a noose with strong, long rope used to tie the cows and bulls. The noose will be held at the opening of the hedge. The cowshed was tethered with long ropes, but I could not take one from there easily without the knowledge of Grandfather. Soon I had my chance. Grandfather went out of our village for a couple of days on some business. In the evening, I went to the cowshed and removed a long rope from one of the cows. The noose was ready. I then kept the noose on the track and the other end tied to a big tree. The trap was ready. I could hardly sleep at night and rushed to see the result the next morning. When I reached the spot, I saw the huge crocodile with the noose tied around its neck. When the ground showed, he struggled to get away. The crocodile saw me and suddenly rushed at me with its mouth open, letting off a sharp sound. But the strong rope held it back. I ran home and woke up Uncle to tell him all about my big catch. He at first could not believe me. He then came out with me and saw that what I said was true. He then made another noose and tied it to the neck of the crocodile with a stick. Then, together, pulling from two ends, got the huge creature near our house and tied it securely to two trees. My grandmother came first to see the catch. Then came the servants and the neighbors. In no time, news spread all over the village. I was so excited that I did not want to go to school. Uncle wrote a letter to the teacher informing my great achievement. The teacher came with the whole class of over 30 children to see my crocodile. I felt like a hero, at least to my classmates. I told again and again how I caught the crocodile. The crowd got bigger. Some threw stones. Others wanted to kill him. I appealed to them not to hurt the crocodile. Finally, I told them that I was going to set the crocodile free. The whole crowd was angry and impatient to kill the animal. I could not get support from anyone. I almost lost hope of saving my crocodile. Then, suddenly, Grandfather returned. I knew he was the only man who could save the life of my crocodile. I ran up to him and told him what had happened. I pleaded with him to save the life of the crocodile. He looked to the prisoner and then looked at the crowd. In a loud voice, he told them that the crocodile would be set free. Nobody should do any harm to him. I jumped with joy. Many came to argue, but he shouted at them and told them to leave the place. The crowd melted away. Grandfather then called Uncle to make arrangements to set the crocodile free in the temple tank where there were many other crocodiles. The crocodile was then dragged to the temple tank. Then it was pressed down with a ladder and several strong men holding down the ladder. The noose was cut and the crocodile jumped into the tank, and I returned home with a feeling of relief. Life at school. The headmaster of our school was fat and short. He looked like a rolling ball whenever he moved about. We, students, made fun of him behind his back. But before him, we were like little rats in front of a cat. He was always grave and never smiled in the school. He wanted strict discipline among the students. For this, he used his cane as often as he could. The headmaster was a friend of my grandfather. He came to our house at times and reported to him on my progress at school. My grandfather always liked to hear that I was the best student in the class and that I have a great future. One day, however, the headmaster told grandfather, "You should pay a little more attention to Raja's study. Recently, he's neglecting his studies." The moment headmaster left, grandfather took a cane and suddenly appeared in my room. I was then painting a picture. He jumped on me like a lion, caught hold of me by my wrist, and started beating me. I cried loudly and called out to grandmother to come and save me. Grandmother rushed in and fell between me and grandfather. "Stop!" she cried. "What are you doing? You are killing the child." Grandfather let me off, but turned to grandmother and shouted, "You are spoiling him. He's not studying anything. He's only painting pictures." He then looked around the room and saw many of my paintings and drawings on the walls. He was furious and tore down as many pictures as he could. He then warned me not to waste my time painting pictures and left the room. I was sorry that all my good paintings were destroyed, and I was afraid to paint any more pictures at home. One day, the headmaster came to our class to teach mathematics. Our teacher was on leave. We did not like the headmaster taking any class, but we were helpless. We all stood up in silence as he entered. He looked around the class to make sure that everything was in order. He then waved his left hand, ordering us to sit down. We obeyed. He went to the blackboard and wrote down 5 sums. Then he turned to us and said, "There are 5 sums here, and I want all of you to do all the sums before the period is over." He then sat down comfortably in the chair. He looked tired. He was taking a little rest, and in a few moments he was fast asleep. The sums were simple, and we were all done in a few minutes. After finishing the sums, I looked at the headmaster. He looked so funny that I thought I could draw a picture of him. I tried, and the picture turned out to be good. His round face, bald head, huge belly, naked legs, and the funny position in which he was sleeping were all in the picture. His likeness to the picture was so good that anybody could tell it was my headmaster. I was getting impatient to show the picture to my friends. The bell rang. The headmaster woke up, quickly checked the sums, and left. When I held the picture out to my friends, they roared with laughter. There was a great excitement when the teacher for the next class arrived. When he failed to bring order in the class, he came to me and snatched away the drawing from my hand. He looked at it, smiled, then became grave and went out. I was soon called by the headmaster. The headmaster was angry and asked, "Did you draw this picture?" I said, "Yes." "You did this?" He roared and caught me by the hand and caned twice. "Now get out and do not enter the class for 2 weeks." I did not know what to do. I came home after school and expected the worst to happen. The headmaster came and told grandfather that I was not doing well in the class and that I had wasted 1 whole period in drawing a picture of him. Then he gave grandfather the drawing I had done. Grandfather looked at the drawing and burst into laughter. "Did Raja do it?" he asked. "Yes," the headmaster said. Grandfather laughed again and called grandmother and uncle to see the picture. "Do you think Raja did anything wrong in drawing this picture?" asked grandfather. "Of course he did," replied the headmaster. "And he did it during the period I was taking a lesson." "But I like the picture very much," said grandfather. "I never thought the boy was so clever." The headmaster did not want to contradict grandfather and said, "Of course he is clever. That is why I brought the picture to you." Rani in distress. One day, I was visiting my aunt's house. Out in the garden, I saw a dog chasing a little squirrel. I ran and caught the squirrel before the dog could touch it. I liked the baby squirrel and took it home. Grandmother did not like to have a squirrel in the house. She argued, "It is too young and sick, and it will die soon. Let it go." I said, "Yes, Grandmother, it is sick and it needs care. I shall keep the squirrel and look after it." While the argument was on, Grandfather arrived. He asked, "Why do you want to keep the animal? Its father and mother are crying now because you have taken away their child." "Grandfather," I said, "I saved the squirrel from a dog at Aunt's house. If I leave it there, the dog will kill it." Grandfather looked at the squirrel and left. I knew he had allowed me to keep the squirrel. Grandmother could not object. I named the squirrel Rani. Uncle brought me a cage to keep the animal. I made the cage a nice home for Rani and kept it in my room. The squirrel grew bigger and could run and play with me. One day, I took her into the garden. She was happy and ran around and climbed up a tree and was lost among the leaves. But she came down when I called her. As Rani grew older, I kept the door of the cage open. This allowed her to move freely in and out of the house. As days passed by, I saw less and less of Rani. Then for weeks I did not see Rani. One day I saw her in the garden. She was not alone. She had another squirrel with her. When I called her, she looked at me for a moment and then came to me. Her friend ran up a tree and watched us. After this, she was rarely visible in the garden and never came inside the house. I almost forgot about Rani until one morning I heard the repeated cries of a squirrel. I came out and it was Rani. She came towards me and then ran back towards the backyard of a house. I guessed that she needed help. I quickly followed her to the backyard. There, to my horror, I found a squirrel caught by a snake. It was Rani's friend. I shouted. My uncle came and pressed the snake with a stick. The snake let go of the squirrel from its mouth and crawled away. The squirrel, however, could not be saved. He was already dead. I laid the squirrel on the ground and stepped back. Rani was watching from a tree. She came down to her friend and remained near him for a few minutes, sniffing all over the body. Then she went back to the tree. Suddenly, a kite swooped down and carried the dead squirrel away. Rani screamed. We stood there feeling helpless. Rani then quickly ran up the tree, crying all the way, as if she were more frightened than before. She disappeared into a nest at the top. Uncle said she must be having her baby there. She must be scared of the kite, which may pick up her baby. In the evening, as I sat alone in my room, thinking of Rani, I heard the sound of a squirrel. I came out. It was Rani. She was carrying her baby in her mouth. She came near me and placed the baby squirrel on the floor. I did not know what to do. I called Grandfather and Uncle. They came at once and were surprised to see that Rani had come to me with her child. Then Uncle said, "Rani is afraid of the snake in the cage. She wants you to protect her child till it is grown up." I took up the old cage and hung it from the ceiling as before. The baby squirrels were placed inside the cage. Rani quickly ran inside the cage and lay down to feed the babies. Grandfather was very much moved. He folded his hands in prayer. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He said, "It is all God's play. It is all God's love."